Okay, guys, good afternoon, evening, or night. How you doing today? Welcome back to Mr. Moore's class. Today we're going to be continuing actually, with solving one-step inequalities. We saw how to deal with one-step inequalities when we just have addition and or subtraction. Well, today we're going to talk about one-step equalities with multiplication and division. Please remember that there are no differences between solving equations and inequalities. The only difference, the only exception, is when you multiply or divide by a negative. Okay? Not to a negative, but by a negative. Just in case you guys forgot, let's just review what the difference between multiplying by a negative and to a negative. If I have negative 6x is less than 30, okay, to solve for x here, I have to divide by a negative. So since I divided by a negative, I'm going to flip my inequality. Okay? I flipped it. If I have to multiply by a negative, say I have negative 2 here, it's greater than or equal to 4. In this case, I have x divided by negative 2, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. I'm going to multiply by a negative 2. So since I multiplied by a negative 2, I'm going to flip the inequality sign because of that negative that I multiplied by, and now I have x is less than or equal to negative 8. Now I'm going to show you what it is to multiply to a negative or divide to a negative. Have the exact same questions except I'm going to flip the negative. In this case, I divided by a 6, so I do not flip it. I divided to a negative here, okay? But I divided a positive 6 to a negative. I do not flip the sign there. If I have x over positive 2 is greater than or equal to 4, negative 4, well, this time I have x divided by 2. I got to cancel out the 2 by multiplying by the reciprocal. X is greater than or equal to negative 8. I did not flip the inequality sign. Why? Because I did not divide by a negative. So if you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip the inequality. If you are multiplying or dividing to a negative, not necessarily. Now, sometimes people tell me, oh, but this is very confusing, Mr. Moore. What about if you have it like this? And there's two negatives. What do? No worries. You ask yourself, what am I dividing by? In this case, I'm dividing by a negative 6, correct? So that's the only thing I'm worried about. If I divided by a negative 6, do I flip the inequality? No. Absolutely, yes. Whoever said no, why do you think no? We just went over this. If I divide by a negative, I flip the inequality sign. Who needs help with that so I can help them, please? You sure, my friends? You got this? All right, awesome. So, solving inequalities is identical to solving equations, except whenever you multiply or divide by a negative. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip the inequality sign. Okay, you have to. It's just the way it goes. Now, what is the difference between multiplying or dividing by a negative and multiplying or dividing to a negative? We already discussed that. So let's just go ahead and do some examples. 4x is less than 16. What's the relationship between 4 and x here? They're being multiplied. How do you cancel multiplication? Am I dividing by a negative here? So do I flip the inequality? Nope. So that's x is less than 4, 0, open circle, less than, to the left, and boom, you're done. Number 2, I got negative 3x is greater than or equal to 21. What is the relationship between the negative 3 and the x there? They're being multiplied. How do you cancel multiplication? Okay, so I'm going to divide by a negative 3. Good man. So you got to flip because I divided by a negative. So this is x is now less than or equal to. I flip the inequality to negative 7. 0. Here's my negative 7. Closed circle. X is less than or equal to negative 7. Shaded to the left. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Awesome. 3/5 x is less than or equal to 20. What's the relationship between the 3/5 and that x? How do you get rid of a fraction that's being multiplied to a variable? We multiply by the reciprocal. Very good. So you multiply by 5/3. Am I multiplying or dividing by a negative here? So I do not flip the sign, correct? I do not flip the sign. So this is going to be less than or equal to 100 over 3. So x is less than or equal to 33 and 1/3. So remember what I told you when there's fractions. Here's my 32. Oh, actually, let's do that 33. Let's do that 34. 33 and 1/3, I'm not too picky. 33 and 1/3. That's going to be a closed circle and to the left. So remember, guys, whenever you have fractions or decimals, not only do you have to put your 0, but you have to put the two whole numbers which encapsulate the fraction or decimal you were trying to graph. Does that make sense? Okay. Last but not least, I got number 4. I got negative x over 4 is greater than negative 13. First of all, what is this negative x over 4? What does that really mean?
The whole fraction.
Yeah, but I liked what someone else said better. There's a negative 1/4 there being multiplied to that x. Correct, guys? Because remember that negative is really a negative 1 being multiplied to that x. You guys with me, right? Okay, awesome. So now, I have negative 1/4 x is greater than negative 13. What is the relationship between the negative 1/4 and the x? No, they're being multiplied. How do you cancel out multiplication? Right, so when you divide a fraction, you're really multiplying by the reciprocal. Very good. So you're multiplying by a negative. Since I'm multiplying by a negative, what does that have to do? Gotta flip the inequality. Very good. So that's x is less than now, and I think that's 52. And to graph that bad boy, here's my 0, here's my 52. That's an open circle. It's less than. So you shade it to the left. Yes, sir. What's up, my man? I know I switched from greater than to less than. Why? Because I multiplied by a negative 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. Thank you. That's why we learn. Does that make sense, y'all? Okay, let's do some more problems. If 3/5 of the pizza is at least 12 slices, how many slices are there in the whole pizza? Oh, I like that one. If 3/5 of the pizza is at least 3 slices, how many slices are there in the whole pizza?
I know the answer, but you do 3/5 times x.
3/5 of the pizza we don't know,
It's greater than or equal to
is at least greater than or equal to 12. Very good. Very good. Fantastic. Now what? That's a fantastic setup. Now what, my man? How do I solve this?
You have to move the. Sorry.
Oh, not sorry at all. You're doing great. You have to move the 3/5, right? Yeah, but how do I move that 3/5 magically? It's not just moving it. What's the relationship between the 3/5 and the x? Yes, sir. What's the relationship? Are they being added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided? How do you get rid of multiplication? Yeah, you're dividing, guys. But remember, when you divide, you stay, change, flip. So you're multiplying by the reciprocal. Very good. So x is greater than or equal to, that's 20. So it's greater than or equal to 20 slices. It's a big pizza. Does that make sense, gentlemen? Promise? If I were to go and graph it, here's my 0, here's my 20. Remember, in this case, it's greater than. So it's 20 or anything larger. Yes, sir, and then yes, sir. It's greater than because it's at least. Thank you, sir. At least is greater than or equal to. At most is less than or equal to. Remember when we talked about the ages, when we first talked about this? You are at least 14 years old. That means you're 14 or older, right? You are at most 14. That means you're 14 or less than. Thank you, my man. Yes, sir, you had a question here. Well, I have to, actually, you're right. 20 slices. Thank you, my man. I apologize for that. It was my bad. Thank you, son. Thank you. Okay, now, number 6. If 1/4 of your total debt is at most $2,000, excuse me, how much debt do you have in total? Come on, guys, let's try this. What do you think? If 1/4 of, what does of mean again? Good. So if 1/4 of your debt, do you know what your debt is? That's your x. Okay, let's put it together. 1/4 times x, good, is at most 2,000.
Less than equal to 2,000.
Less than or equal to 2,000. Very good. Very good job. I want to solve for x though, my brother. So how do I get rid of that 1/4 that is being multiplied to x? You multiply by the reciprocal. That's exactly correct. Very good job. X is less than or equal to $8,000. That makes sense, gentlemen. Awesome. Okay, last but not least. Max can bench press 200 pounds. This is, we did something similar to this. This is at least 4 times the amount his brother can bench press. How much can Max's brother bench press? Now let's think about this. Let's think about what the words are, guys. Max can bench press 200 pounds, right? But then it says, this is. What is the this? The 200 pounds is the this, guys. Think about the sentence. Max can bench press 200 pounds. This is at least this. What is the this? 200 pounds. So this is at least. What does is at least mean? Greater than or equal to 4 times the amount his brother can bench. 4x. Does that make sense, guys? You promise? Awesome. Now, how do we solve for this, my man? Divide by 4. That's exactly correct. Very well done, son. Very well done. His brother can bench press. X is less than or equal to 50 pounds. Very, very excellent. Does that make sense? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, for number 6. For graphing, if you wanted to graph this, no, absolutely. Here's your 0, here's your 8,000. It's less than or equal to, so solid on the 8,000, all the way to 0. Because there's no such thing as negative money. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Great lesson. Hope you learned a lot. Bye-bye and have a great day.